Hello friends, welcome back to Best Notes Tutorials. I'm Roshni and today is day 4th of our KVS preparation. So let's begin with today's class. Before we do that, let me tell you that we have a WhatsApp group where you can join for free, and there we will provide daily videos and a PDF for the preparation of the same examination. So let's begin with the class.
The topic for today's MCQ is Sylvia Plath. Question number 1. How old was Sylvia when she had her first poem published? Your options are 14, option B 12, option C 8 and option D 10. Right answer is 8. Sylvia Plath was of just 8 years when she published her first poem. On April 27, 1935, Plath's brother Warren was born, and in 1936 the family moved from 24 Prince Street in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts to 92 Johnson Avenue, Winthrop, Massachusetts. Friends, from this highlighter you will get 3-4 questions. First of all, who was the brother of Sylvia Plath? It is Warren Plath. When he was born on 27th April 1935, and in the year 1936 entire family moved to some other place for residing. Plath's mother Aurelia had grown up in Winthrop, and her maternal grandparents, the Scobbers, had lived in a section of the town called Point Shirley, a location mentioned in Plath's poetry. So if you are asked what is the name of Sylvia Plath's mother, you are going to say it is Aurelia Plath. And what about the grandparents? Grandparents are called the Scobbers. While living in Winthrop, 8-year-old Plath published her first poem in the Boston Herald's children's section. So at the mere age of 8 years, Sylvia Plath published her poem. Question number 2. In 2006, a previously unpublished Plath poem called Ennui was discovered. What structure did the poem take? Option A, sestina, option B, villanelle, option C, sonnet, and option D, free verse. The right option is sonnet. Her poetry, Ennui, was written in sonnet. Ennui is a sonnet by Sylvia Plath, published for the first time in November 2006. In the month of November, this first poem of Sylvia Plath was published in the online literary journal Blackbird. In which journal? In Blackbird. The name of the journal is Blackbird, where her first poetry was published. Sylvia Plath wrote the Petrarchan sonnet Ennui during her undergraduate years at Smith College. Now we know that there are 3 sonnets: Petrarchan, Shakespearean and Spenserian. So out of these 3, she wrote in Petrarchan sonnet, Petrarchan structure. And another question which can come from this point is, in which college Sylvia Plath was admitted to? Right answer is Smith College. Next, the first appearance of Ennui in print received international attention from New York to New Delhi. Now see, this means that whether it is Eastern world or Western, the literary work of Sylvia Plath did not have any limit. It is stretched throughout the world, which shows how great the poetess was. It is so unfortunate that she died at a very early age, but within that time frame, she has given a lot to us for reading. Question number 3. In which of the following poems does Sylvia Plath talk about her poetry? First option is Suicide of Egg Rock. Option B, A Birthday Present. Option C, Stillborn. And option D, Lady Lazarus. First of all, before we go into the right answer, let me tell you that these all are written by Sylvia Plath. So if you get MCQs on any of the topics related to these poetries, you must remember that all these are work of Sylvia Plath. All these poetries are written by Sylvia Plath. Now, let's come to this question number 3. Question number 3's right answer is option C, that is Stillborn. It is the Stillborn poetry where she talks about her poetry. Let's see the highlighters. Stillborn is the right answer. Sylvia Plath expresses a sense of responsibility for her poetry that echoes her conflicted feelings about motherhood. Now see, as we know, when we read the biography of Sylvia Plath, we understand that she was not happy at all. She was not happy with the relationship with her husband as well as with her father. She did not have a good life as a daughter and as a wife as well. Therefore, she expresses her problems, she expresses her discomfort, her frustration through poetry, and she takes her poetries as children. Okay, the way a human being nurtures their children, in the same way she feels that her poetry should be nurtured. Therefore, she is too much attached with her poetry and she finds refuge in writing. Next point, Plath creates jolting images of human and animal babies that are not developing correctly in order to express her writing frustration. Now see, as I told you that she is comparing her poetry with children. Alright, so she takes what is the difference between the babies of human being and babies of animals. Usually, human beings take care of their babies utterly, whereas animals don't do that. Alright, animals, they grow up like that only without any care. So, she also expresses that the attention that she has to give towards her poetry, which she is not able to do. And because of lagging of that, she is feeling frustrated. Let's move to the next point. Stillborn is a poem about the frustration of writing poems. When she was not able to express her frustration through poems, then she became so much agitated. She did not have much friends to express her feelings. Alright, how she was disappointed by this relationship, she did not find anybody, any friend, any relative to express. Therefore, she wanted to write maximum poetries, and in her poetries we find that there is no happiness. Alright, she is always longing for some light, some sunlight, some hopes in her life. Question number 4. How many poetry books did Plath publish in her lifetime? Option A 2, option B 1, option C 3, option D 4. Correct answer is 1. Sylvia Plath published just one poetry book in her lifetime. Many of the poems here appeared in the Colossus, the only collection of poems Plath published in her lifetime. The collection where Sylvia Plath published her poetry is the Colossus. In this Colossus, we find all the poetries of Sylvia Plath, and this was the only book of poetry collection that she published ever in her life. The Colossus and Other Poems is a poetry collection by American poet Sylvia Plath, first published by Heinemann in 1960. Now see, who was the publisher? Heinemann. And in which year it was published? 1960. It is the only volume of poetry by Plath that was published before her death in 1963. Sylvia Plath died in the year 1963, and before that she published this only volume of poetry. In that poetry we find the list below includes the poems in the US version of the collection published by Heinemann in 1960. Let's see more points related to the Colossus. Before that, let me tell you that Sylvia Plath's husband was Ted Hughes. Okay, Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath, they used to play, in their free time, they used to play a board game. And the name of the game is Ouija. Okay, the name of the board game is Ouija, and from this, the title Colossus has come. And this is what she keeps the poetry collection's name. The title, The Colossus, comes from Colossus, a character who appeared in the Ouija board game of Plath and Ted Hughes, directing her to write poems on certain topics. Now see, being inspired by this board game, alright, and the things which were relatable to her life of this game, she wrote poetries on these topics. What are those? Let us see. She wrote poetry on the manor garden, two views of a cavender room, night shift, so the eye moat. Next is the eye moat, Hardcastle cracks, fawn, departure, the Colossus, Loreley, Point Shirley, the bull of Bendilaw, all the dead deers, aftermath, the thin people, suicide of egg rock, mushrooms. Other poems of Sylvia Plath are I Want, Watercolor of Grantchester Meadows, The Ghost's Leave Taking, A Winter Ship, Full Phantom 5, Blue Moles, Stumpet Song, Man in Black, Snake Charmer, The Hermit at Outermost House, The Disquieting Muses. Next, poems in the Colossal are Medallion, The Compassionable Ills, Moonrise, Spinster, Frog Autumn, Mussel Hunter at Rock Harbour, The Beekeeper's Daughter. Others are The Times Are Tidy, The Burnt Out Spa, Sculptor, Flute Notes from a Ready Pond, The Stones. That poetry collection was entitled The Colossus and Other Poems. This was published in 1960. Now the poetries that we read just now, that we have gone through just now, all these poetries are included in the poetic collection The Colossus, and this was published in the year 1960, and after 3 years, that is 1963, Sylvia Plath died after publishing this book. Next, Ariel was not published until 1965, 2 years after her death. Ariel, this is another poetry which is of Sylvia Plath. This was not published till 1965. Let's move to question number 5. When Sylvia Plath published The Bell Jar in 1963, what name did she publish it under? Option A, her own name Sylvia Plath. Option B, Victoria Lucas. Option C, Esther Greenwood. Option D, Freda Hughes. So the right answer is Victoria Lucas, which is option B, Victoria Lucas. This is the pet name which was used by Sylvia Plath for publishing The Bell Jar, and The Bell Jar was published in the year 1963, just before her death. Let's see the highlighters. The Bell Jar is the only novel written by the American writer and poet Sylvia Plath. Please remember, Sylvia Plath was an American writer. Originally published under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas in 1963, the novel is semi-autobiographical with the names of places and people changed. Now see, whatever she wrote in The Bell Jar, those incidences are true, those feelings are true. In order to disguise, some places were changed, some people's name were changed, so that the readers will not get exact life of the poetess. So we can say this is semi-autobiographical in nature. The poetry is semi-autobiographical in nature. The book is often regarded as a Roman A clef because the protagonist's descent into mental illness parallels Plath's own experiences with what may have been clinical depression or bipolar 2 disorder. Sylvia Plath was unhappy. She found herself all alone. Though she had children, she could not convey what she was going through. Therefore, she thought of trying something in order to get rid of this life. She tried many times and finally she died by committing suicide. So, we see here that even she was depressed and she had bipolar disorders. Next, Plath died by suicide a month after its first United Kingdom publication. Now, after the publication of The Bell Jar, she dies. The novel was published under Plath's name for the first time in 1967 and was not published in the United States until 1971 in accordance with the wishes of both Plath's husband, Ted Hughes, and her mother. Now see, her pet name was not used for the publication of The Bell Jar until 1967. After that, it was published and it was published in United States as well in the year 1971 and in other places in the year 1967. Now this happened because of the decision of Ted Hughes, which is husband of Sylvia Plath and her mother. Next, the novel has been translated into nearly a dozen languages. The novel has been translated. That means it was not only liked by people of English speakers or English readers, but other languages also, be it French, be it Spanish, be it other countries' language, they were translated and they were marked by the readers. According to her husband, Plath began writing the novel in 1961 after publishing The Colossus, her first collection of poetry. Friends, we know Sylvia Plath wrote poems excessively, but when she was about to die, she started writing novel as well. Plath finished writing the novel in August 1961. After she separated from Hughes, Plath moved to a smaller flat in London, giving her time and space to work uninterruptedly. Now, Sylvia Plath did not have good relationship with Ted Hughes and therefore she got separated, and then she lived her life whatever way she wished. So she wrote poetry excessively, conveying her feelings. Then at top speed and with very little revision from start to finish, she wrote The Bell Jar, he explained. Now he says that without any interruption. That means a poetry, when it is written, it needs to be edited now and then, but Sylvia Plath did that very less. She wrote it and that used to be the final one. She did not keep it for editing any further. Whatever was her original feeling, she expresses in her poetries and novels as well. Early working titles of the novel included Diary of a Suicide and The Girl in the Mirror. These two works you need to remember that these are the novels which were written after The Bell Jar. Next, question number 6. In the short story Superman and Paula Brown's New Snowsuit, when the children are at the movies, a war film is shown before the main features. What was the main feature called? Option A, Fantasia. Option B, Dumbo. Option C, Snow White. And option D, Pinocchio. Option D, Pinocchio. So right answer is option C, that is Snow White. Snow White was the main character of the short story Superman and Paula Brown's New Snowsuit. Let's see the highlighters. Superman and Paula Brown's New Snowsuit is a short story by Sylvia Plath written in 1955. Please remember publishing year because these are asked in the examination. It deals with children's fantasies. Okay, the book This book deals with the children's fantasies about Superman and with how children can put blame on others for their material losses, a ruined snowsuit, and easily fall into a collective blaming. So here we see that children, they blame each other for their material losses, like if they lose something, like say for example toffees. Okay, they put blame on their friends. If you would have done this, then this would not have been my situation. In the same way, they react for snowsuit as well, a ruined snowsuit which they loved dearly. Let's know more about this work of Sylvia Plath. It was first published in the spring 1955 issue of Smith Review, the literary magazine of Smith College where Plath studied. The story was later collected in the anthology Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams, which was published posthumously in 1977. Posthumously means after the death of the author. She died in 1963 and it was published after many years, that is 1977. The story takes place in the early days of World War II. So particularly, it takes place when World War II was going on. The unnamed narrator is a happy and imaginative fifth grader who idolizes Superman and dreams of flying. See, in this novel, it talks about a child's dream to become a Superman and fly just like him. Not only that, to solve other issues also. After Paul Brown's birthday party and an incident involving her favorite present, however, the narrator finds her innocent fantasies lost forever, replaced by the harshness of the real world. Now, see, the character, the narrator especially, alright, he had a lofty imagination for Superman, but after that, he was waiting for Superman to arrive and he had a lot of expectation from the suit of Superman. He thought that by just wearing suit of Superman, he will be having real power, but that did not happen. Eventually, he had to accept the reality that this is harsh reality where he has to live in. There is no concept called Superman in real world. Superman and Paula Brown's new suit is used as a text in English education. Now, this is included in English education as well in order to give a moral lesson to the children. Next, question number 7. How did Plath eventually commit suicide? Option A, hanging. Option B, carbon monoxide poisoning. Option C, overdosing on pills. Last option is firearms. So the right answer is option B, that is carbon monoxide poisoning. Now see how it has happened. She switched on the gas and she inhaled the gas which emitted there, and then she committed suicide. She could not breathe and then because of suffocation she died. Clinical depression drove Sylvia Plath to her death. On February 11, 1963, the poet Sylvia Plath, distraught at the breakup of her marriage to Ted Hughes, committed suicide. Plath died on carbon monoxide poisoning with her head in the oven, having sealed the rooms between her and her sleeping children with tape, towels and cloths. At approximately 4:30 a.m., Plath had placed her head in the oven with the gas turned on. She was 30 years old. See, the great writer was of just 30 years when she died, and she died because of depression that had happened because of malfunctioning of relationship, especially with her husband. See, in real world also we see that people are depressed and we need to work on it. Otherwise, we might lose resourceful people like Sylvia Plath at very early age. We need to speak up regarding this. If somebody is not happy with anything, they should speak up. If she would have done so and the society would have taken initiative to know about her sufferings, then we would have seen much more writings of Sylvia Plath and we would have appreciated. But because of lack of relationship, because of lack of kindness, care, concern about another people, because of lack of humanity also, we have lost Sylvia Plath. So this should not happen again with anybody else, be it anyone. We should talk to it openly if we are not happy with anything. Next, let's see more important points here. She left behind her children, 4-year-old Frida Plath and 1-year-old Nicholas. She had 2 children, and before committing suicide, she had kept her children safe. 6 years after Sylvia Plath's death, her husband Ted Hughes faced more tragedy when his mistress, Asia Weville, who had lured him away from Plath, killed herself and their 4-year-old daughter Shura. Now see, Ted Hughes had diverted towards this lady, because of which Sylvia Plath was not happy at all. And as it was her second marriage, therefore she became more distraughted and then she committed suicide. But after 6 years, Ted Hughes had to face another tragedy, and that was this: her wife and children were not alive because they were also killed. In March 1969, Asia had dragged a bed into the kitchen of her Clapham flat, dissolved sleeping tablets in a glass of water, and gave the drink to her daughter before drinking the rest herself. Now see, she had snatched Ted Hughes from Sylvia Plath, and she had driven Sylvia Plath for death, and the same thing she had to experience in her life as well. Because of some reason, she also committed suicide. The reason is not known exactly, but her daughter and she herself committed suicide by drinking sleeping pills and never returned. Then she turned on the gas stove and got into bed with the children. Now see, here you will see similarity between the suicide of these two ladies, Sylvia Plath and this Asia. And what is that? There is mention of gas stove. The way Sylvia Plath had died, more or less in the same way, this lady also had to die. Hughes eventually married his wife Carol Orchard in 1970, and they were married until his death in 1998. Now, Ted Hughes had married Carol Orchard and left for Sylvia Plath, and after death of Sylvia Plath, he again married Carol Orchard. But this was not a happy ending, because later on, even after the death of Ted Hughes, there was tragedy which was waiting for him. See, Ted Hughes died 28th November 1998 at the age of 68 in London, England, and the reason of his death was heart attack. Nicholas Hughes, son of Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes, he also committed suicide, and it was 40 years after his mother's suicide. That is, Sylvia Plath died in the year 1963, and after about 46 years, even Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes' son committed suicide. 40 years to the day after the stepmother Asia did the same. Now see, afterwards, even Asia Weville committed suicide. He was 47 years old. The son was 47 years old when he died. Let's move to the question number 8. Which institution did Sylvia attend in 1950? Your options are Boston University, option B, Newham College, option C, Smith College, and option D, Yale University. Right answer is option C, Smith College. In 1950, Plath attended Smith College, a private women's liberal arts college in Massachusetts. She excelled academically and wrote to her mother. So she was a very bright student, but unfortunately in later life, that is during adulthood, she became extremely alone and then she did this misconduct. Question number 9. Several of her poems have a month in her title. Which of these months is never used as the title of any of her poems? Option A, November. Option B, July. Option C, February. Option D, October. Right answer is February, which is not used in her poems. Let's see the poems where she mentioned the name of the month. The first one is Poppies in July, then Poppies in October. Next is Letter in November. So, like this, we don't see February in any of the poems. Question number 10, and this is going to be last question for today's class. Rest we will see in our next class. Question number 10. Tulips was written after receiving some flowers during a stay in hospital. Why was she in hospital at that time? Option A, suicidal urges. Option B, appendectomy. Option C, miscarriage. And option D, broken leg. So it is option B, that is appendectomy. Friends, by this we complete today's class. We will continue with these kind of MCQs in our next class. Let me tell you that we have notes of almost all the courses and the name of the courses are mentioned in the starting of the video. If you wish to get them, do message us for free notes as well as paid notes. So do be present in our next class. Till then we meet. Take care and stay well. All the best. Thank you everyone.